Good afternoon, Superintendent Osorio and Student Services Director Tricia St. Michael. As you know, my name is Tim Corkin, and I'm one of the current alternative to suspension teachers for District 622. I'd like to take a couple minutes to talk to you about some proposed changes to our program so that we can better serve our students in the district. I'd like to start off by just giving you a little background information of how alternative to suspension programs came to be about here in the state of Minnesota. They started back in 2009, 2010 when Minnesota Department of Education awarded 5 school districts some grant funds to develop alternative to suspension programs. Now, as you can see from the graph on the right side, the blue line shows the drastic drop in out-of-school suspensions for those 5 districts that received the grant funds. But overall, that red line still shows the state average also went down in that time, just not nearly to the drastic amount that the 5 districts that started alternative to suspension programs. District 622 joined those other districts for the 2018-2019 school year and developed their own alternative to suspension program. Right now, our alternative to suspension program is called CARE, which stands for Combining Academics with Restorative Education. It is myself and one other staff member who are licensed teachers. I have a special education background, and the other teacher has a math education background. We also have one paraprofessional that helps support our program. Now, we are available to students grades 6 through 12 in District 622, where when they do something at school that would originally get them an out-of-school suspension, they can be referred to CARE, where we keep them up in their academics, but we also address the need to change some of their behavior and see what we can do to come up with better plans for the future. We are located in the District Education Center office area near North High School, and we're available, like I said, for all of the district students, grade 6 through 12, to come here and have a more structured setting instead of being at home to serve their suspension. Our current setup for CARE, we have one long classroom that is somewhat divided into 2 classrooms so that each of the teachers can have one side of the classroom. There's a restroom and a little walkway area in between where staff and students can walk in between. Our current setup of having one larger classroom split into 2 smaller areas leads to some concerns for our current staff members. Those being the lack of an area for de-escalation and quiet space, the ability for students to roam freely in between both sides of the room. There's also no area inside the District Education Center to have the students get rid of some of their pent-up energy. And then also, since we're in the district education offices, we are away from our social studies experts, our science experts, and so on, just because we are not located in a school. The first of our concerns was the lack of an area for de-escalation or quiet space. Since one of our goals is to address the issue for a student's referral, we sometimes need to talk privately with students to address that situation. And our current setup really doesn't allow us to have a whole lot of privacy in some of those conversations. We're having to use the the hallway, and that isn't really that private. And since we don't have side rooms either, when students choose not to follow our expectations and they're being loud and off task, that interrupts the learning environment for their students. Where if we had some other quiet space opportunity areas that they could go in there while staff are working through the off task behaviors with those students. Concern number 2 was right now with that walkway in between, students walk in between our rooms back and forth, and that interrupts the learning that students are having just because of the disruption that some students can cause by going from one side to the other. There's nothing getting in their way, and even though staff do their best to stop a student from going over and disrupting the other side, it still happens from time to time. Just another concern that we would like to be addressed. Our third concern is just that we don't have an indoor gymnasium area or a larger room for indoor activities, and we know that it's not good for students to just sit at the desks in their desks all day. And right now, our program doesn't allow us to use an indoor space to help students get rid of some of their pent up energy. And lastly, number four, our content area experts are pretty far away. Since we are located in the district education center, we have the ability of our 3 middle schools, 2 high schools, and 2 alternative programs to refer students to our program. Meaning that they're away from their content experts. Even though that I have a special education background and our other teacher has a math background, we would still like to be able to use experts in different content area a little more frequently and have that readily available. The proposal that we would like to discuss with you is for District 622 to incorporate a new space for the CARE program within its current district buildings, and or in the new buildings that are going to be incorporated throughout the district because of the recent referendum that was passed. Now, a new space would be able to address all 4 needs. We'd be able to address the lack of areas for de-escalation and quiet space. We would be able to stop students from roaming from room to room. We'd be able to get an area that would let students get rid of their pent-up energy by having a gymnasium time set aside for us. And then we'd also hopefully be located in a school where we can have easier access to certain content areas, teachers that could help students during the day while they're at CARE as well. Now, why should we make these changes to the CARE program in District 622? Well, there's a lot of data out there that would validate our concerns and give us good reason to why we need to address them. One of them would be from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where Reese Peterson and Ken Parnell talk about the importance of using de-escalation rooms when a student is exhibiting potentially harmful behaviors to themselves and or others. They talk about benefits of using the side rooms to teach coping strategies to students, to explore and validate their thoughts and feelings, but also then when those side rooms, have good visibility, you're also really then not leaving the other students unattended because you can see them even though you're in the breakout rooms. So that would be one thing that we'd for sure like to do over with the CARE program here. Another part of the CARE program is doing some restorative activities with students. If we have these side rooms, it gives us the opportunity to have those sometimes tough conversations with students in a little bit more privacy, and still while being able to monitor the students in the classroom. Number two, if we can get a new space, we'd be able to address the concern of students roaming from side to side. This would reduce the opportunity for disruption that those students can cause, either on one side or the other. And then, teaching routines to students is very important. When they are referred to CARE, it kind of breaks up their routine for the day. And if we could have a more regular classroom setup, it would give the students a more comfortable setting to then hopefully be more successful throughout the day too. Scholastic Teacher has many different options for classroom management ideas, and one of the areas that they focus on is the importance of teaching routines. And if we could just keep that routine as similar as possible to the regular school day, it would help them while they're at CARE. Number three, if we were able to have a gymnasium space, then we could prevent students from sitting at their desk most of the day. And we know that the Minnesota winters make it difficult to get outside for the majority of the school year. But if we had the indoor area, we'd have the opportunity to get out, to get in the gym and get some energy that way. Yeah, sedentary lifestyles for students, it can lead to a variety of health problems, and relating to school, it can lead to off-task behaviors, disruptive behaviors, and just students being disengaged throughout the day as well. Exercise has many benefits for the brain, including increased focus, nerve growth, emotional regulation, and increased learning. All things that we can have that we can incorporate then to help students have a little more successful day. And lastly, if our program is located in a school, we would have the opportunity to have content experts close at hand, uh, hopefully incorporating into a teacher's schedule, maybe once a week, where teachers in different content areas come through the CARE program during their prep to just make sure then that students have the opportunity to meet with a content expert, even though that they wouldn't be in their regular classroom, but they could still see a social studies teacher during the day. They can still see a science teacher during the day and get some help from a content expert on their assignments. Now, we really want to see these issues addressed for the CARE program in 622 because it's benefited the district in a lot of positive ways. Now, the total number of ISS days in the year before CARE was implemented was 546.8 days, 0.08 days. And then once CARE was incorporated, that was reduced by almost 124 days. And you can see that since CARE has been implemented as well, that we've cut out nearly 500 days of out-of-school suspensions. That means we've been able to keep students in a little more structured environment, almost 620 more days than they would be if they were just sitting at home and not getting the support from teachers and addressing their needs. Now, CARE staff continually evaluate the successfulness of their program. They gather data and send it back to their schools at the end of each trimester. This data includes the total number of CARE referrals for their school, the average length of assignment, whether it be 1 day to 5 days, and just the average in between. It gives them a breakdown by gender, by race, grade level, all that information. But we also get to see patterns of certain schools maybe sending more for truancy or sending more for fighting, so that those schools can then address those needs a little more in depth at their own school. And then we finally also compare the ISS and OSS data from that point of the previous year, just to make sure that we are still continuing to make a positive difference. Now that we know how District 622 has benefited from implementing the CARE program, how are we going to make sure that these improvements become a reality? Well, back in May, the residents of District 622 voted in favor of approving a $275 million school bond referendum. This referendum is going to have many great impacts throughout the district. We're going to improve schools, we're going to make them safer, healthier learning environments for all of our students. We're going to go from 9 elementaries down to 7, 3 middle schools down to 2, but they're all going to be state-of-the-art, renovated, or even brand new in this case. During the planning and design phase that's happening right now and continuing on for many years, we can incorporate a small space for CARE where we can easily address the 4 concerns and still then be a positive program for our students in District 622. Now, to staff our CARE program, we already have the staff in place, and having the staff there for many years, having that continuity only increases the ability of the program to benefit our students. To recap, we've talked about how the CARE program is increasingly important for the students of District 622, and we've seen the benefits that it has. Now that the bond referendum has passed and the district is planning new facilities, finding a space for CARE that can address the needs is going to be very important for the success moving forward. please ask any questions that you have about what has been discussed.